I know I've talked about this before, but we got to talk about it again because I find it hilarious that a major website can't get over being wrong about a piece of hardware. They are so upset when it comes to IGN and the clickbait factories that they've got going there, the attention seeking that they've got going over there. Not certain people there, not everybody individually, but I'm talking about the business side of things and how they do things and how they want to frame stuff. It's so funny to me that they are so upset that the Switch 2 is curb stomping all portable PCs and doing a really good job of pretty much beating out most systems, actually every system's fastest selling system of all time. They have trouble generating headlines praising what it's done or even being positive because of all of the stuff that they said beforehand. People think that I'm kind of just like trolling or that I'm kind of just like being bitter about things. And no, it's not that at all. I actually like IGN. IGN's one of my favorite sites that I would say inspired me back when it was N64.com. And then later when it became IGN. I have nothing against them. I've been on their channel before. I've been on the IGN, the Nintendo Voice Chat podcast. Like, I think that there's good people there, but you got to call a spade when there's a spade on the table. And the reality is IGN is salty. The people, the higher ups, all that are trying to make the clickbait headlines or whatever the case is, they are salty. Switch 2 is destroying all of their past articles, all of their past stuff that framed portable PCs as some type of major competition for Switch 2. And that never happened. That isn't happening. And they refuse to follow up. They will make articles and they will make things saying that the Switch 2 is an iterative system and it's not doing anything new, and they'll give it low review scores while giving portable PCs higher review scores, complaining about the price of Switch 2 while praising $1,000 ROG Ally. Like, they will do all of these things to lead people to believe that these portable PCs are something that most want or that are significantly better. And I personally believe that they have some type of sponsorship deal or something like that. Once again, can't prove it 100%, but I personally believe that's what they're after because there's a lot of stuff here that we're going to go over. And like I said, I find it pretty funny when it comes down to it. And I would say, we're going to get into it here first and foremost. The headline that they had, what would you think the headline would be if a handheld PC sold 23 million units in its first year? Or if the PS6 sold 23 million plus units in its first year, or Xbox? What do you guys think the headline would be? And then we're going to go into what the reality was for Switch 2 when it sold 23 million plus units in its first year. We're going to talk about that and everything that I have here because I think you guys would find it fascinating. I find it fun to talk about and discuss, so we're going to get into it. But before we continue, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 at 140,000 subscribers or on September 1st, whichever comes first. Subscribe, like, comment. The winner will be chosen at random, and it's a worldwide giveaway. Thanks, peeps. Okay, so remember when I told you guys to think about the headline if Xbox, PlayStation, or a portable PC sold 23 million? Well, here's the headline when the Nintendo Switch 2 literally had the best sales year ever for a system in the history of systems. This is the headline from IGN. Switch 2 sales are down by more than a third compared to the console's explosive launch a year ago. Now, they did explain more, and they did talk about it in the article. If you click on it, you read through. But the fact that Switch 2 can't even get a headline when it literally broke a record, all-time record, that just shows you what the higher-ups at IGN, what their AI or whatever they use to do things is tuned to do. And I also want to quickly add that the 3.82 million units that Nintendo sold for Q1, so that is April, May, and June, that's the highest, if not like second highest total ever for any Nintendo system, and one of the highest totals ever for any Q1 that's ever been recorded. And once again, nothing on that front again from IGN. It's not tuned to put things in a perspective that I would say is positive relative to what we're talking about. It's put in a perspective to make it seem like things are bad despite it doing really well. And once again, it's because they tried to frame Switch 2 as something that wasn't going to do as well compared to portable PCs. Now, on this post on Twitter, it got community noted, and the community note said this: the Nintendo Switch 2 has sold 23.68 million units worldwide. This makes it Nintendo's fastest selling home console at the equivalent stage. It also currently holds the highest reported sales total for any home console in its first 13 months on the market. Wouldn't you think if it set a worldwide best record ever in the history, in the decades, multiple decades long history of this medium, wouldn't you think that might be the headline? Not like, hey, look, it sold less compared to the launch. Yeah, of course, most systems sell less compared to the launch. You would think it'd say, oh my gosh, yo, look at this. It sold 23 million. That's the best ever. But IGN has to find a way. They will always find a way. Because once again, the writers, the people there, the clickbait artists, the business people, they are so salty that their imaginary PC handheld war with Switch 2 didn't come to fruition because they were planning on doing a lot with that money. So now they have to make up other ways to make that up. They have to find other ways to make that up when it comes down to whether it's making up weird articles like they did recently, like has Nintendo lost its soul because of Mario movies and because of remakes and because of an iterative console, stuff that they've done before, stuff that's not a problem at all. They've done remakes, they've done iterative consoles, and they've done all that. And if you look at the article, you look at the YouTube comment section, and you look at where they posted it, everyone's saying this is off. Everyone's saying this is wrong. So they're finding different ways to clickbait it because they can't use the PC handheld angle anymore. So they're finding different ways when it comes down to that. They can't just give it its flowers for what it did when it comes to headlines, when it comes to certain things. Now, here's the thing. It's okay to be critical. I'm critical as well. You don't like $80 Mario Kart? I think that deserves articles. You do not like game key cards. Okay, maybe the console storage isn't enough. Okay, cool. Maybe the Joy-Cons are uncomfortable. That's fine. If you want to put it all together in an article and say that, I'm completely fine with that. But making up or conjuring up things that contradict what's actually happening for clickbait and for headlines because you were wrong about your imaginary PC domination war, like, that's just low. It's just, man, it's bad. It's supposed to be journalism here, right? And that's just not happening when it comes down to it. Now, I have another thing that I want to get into because I think this is funny too. If people don't believe me that they were trying to frame PC handhelds as some type of big competition against the Switch 2, despite never and not ever pointing out handheld PCs have been selling like garbage overall. If you want to talk about in comparison to consoles, remember, they are the ones comparing it to consoles. So you've got to use console sales term. Now, if you want to compare it to niche devices, or if you want to compare it to other handheld PCs and say which one's more successful or not, that's fine. But they are the ones framing it in competition against Nintendo Switch 2. Remember, Nintendo sells multiple millions, upwards of 100 million systems. They've done that multiple times. PC handhelds have never done that, never even gotten close, but IGN felt the need as far back as 2024 to frame it that way. So since they are framing it that way, there is no problem with me bringing up the sales and bringing up what happened because that's what they were doing. So in this article here, January 19th, 2024, they write this: Switch 2, how handheld PCs are becoming Nintendo's next-gen competition, next-gen console watch. And in there, they bring up all this stuff. But one thing that they don't bring up is actual sales, is actual what competition is going to be there. The actual, like, okay, is this going to be a product that mass market is going to pick up compared to a Nintendo Switch 2? Like, they're the ones that are framing it that way. They're making it seem as if it's competition also at the marketplace, not just with what it does, but in the marketplace and how popular it will be, which is sales. So let's move to the next article here. They did another one, and this was January 16th, 2025, and it says this was obviously before the Switch 2 even launched. Will Switch 2 even be the best handheld of 2025? And then they have Lenovo, Acer, and MSI all have their eyes on the crown. So once again, they are framing this imaginary war that handheld PCs are somehow going to be some actual competition for the Nintendo Switch 2. And remember, this is all despite us kind of knowing handheld PCs are not selling anywhere near the Nintendo Switch 1. An old, crusty Nintendo Switch 1 by 2025 is blowing the doors off of all of these handheld PCs combined easily. Even in its olden, golden age state, it is still destroying them. And yet they're still trying to frame this as some type of competition instead of just letting portable PCs be portable PCs and letting the Nintendo Switch 2 competing with the actual more tuned mass market devices like Xbox and PlayStation, at least traditionally when it comes to those, right? Those sell way more than portable PCs. So IGN continues to do this. So once again, it is fair for me to bring up this criticism and for me to look back at what they said. Now you fast forward again, 2025, just a few months later after the last one. Switch 2 has to face a problem the original didn't, handheld gaming PCs. And this might have been the most egregious article that I have ever seen, and why I think that they're paid off. And the reason why I think that is because they complain in this article, I read it multiple times, but they complain, IGN, about the price of the Switch 2, about the price of some of the games, about the price of everything. But then they praise and never mention price comparisons in the video. And they praise bigger, stronger handheld PCs that are coming out that are obviously going to be more expensive. Because even the Steam Deck at that time, I think the Steam Deck OLED and all that was out, and that was, $550 to $700 or whatever, and then it got a price increase, not at this point, but back when it first launched. So we even saw, even at that point in 2025, the prices of a lot of these bigger, newer handheld PCs that were coming out to be more expensive than even the Nintendo Switch 2. And they never mentioned that. And they never actually gave any price comparisons throughout here. They talked about the Switch 2's big price tag of $449, but they never mentioned the other price tags of other handheld PCs that are going up. They just said they're better for the most part, and all they need is a ROG Ally and all this other stuff. It was a really weird article. So they continuously make these claims that are just off base, or just people just disagree with, like overwhelming people disagreeing. So once again, that's why I think there's some type of ulterior type of thing when it comes down to this. Like, these takes are so bad with a lot of them that now at this point, they still do not want to follow up on any of this. They do not want to follow up on any of this. And I think that's what's leading to, has Nintendo lost their soul articles that are trash, to be honest. It's garbage. Like, one of the points was the Mario movies, and Miyamoto likes his own movies. How dare him like his movies? This has no soul. As if Nintendo made a bunch of movies that were better in the past that had a lot of soul and were really good. Like what, the original Mario Bros movie, the live action one, that was reviewed worse than the newer movies. And that was one of the things that they used, that Nintendo's lost their soul. Because look at the Rotten Tomatoes score, not of the actual users, because that was good. No, look at the critic score. The Mario Bros movie from like 1993 or whatever, that was rated way lower. So that makes no sense. Once again, they're doing things that make no sense. They're reaching. I think the people, or the higher ups at, IGN, are trying to press the writers, or trying to press people to write negative things about it, because they wrote all this stuff when it comes to the Switch 2. They wrote all this stuff about handheld PCs and the competition, and it never materialized. So they have to find other ways to get that ad revenue in that way. Now, I'm not talking about the Nintendo voice chat crew. I want to make sure that I make this very clear if you're still watching at this point. I'm not talking about the Nintendo voice chat team or certain people like Brian Altano or Casey, or, when it comes to Per Snyder. Those guys are great. Obviously, they like the Switch to Logan Plant. Those guys do a great job. They're fantastic. I'm not bashing them. I'm just saying the business stuff, the business side, the higher ups, some of the stuff when it comes to comprising IGN are absolutely trying to pull some type of weird narrative when it comes to this system to cover their tracks, because they were wrong. They were wrong, and they were setting this up to be some type of battle between handheld PCs and Switch 2. And ultimately what happened is that Switch 2 blew out every single handheld PC in about a month. We got the sales numbers, the estimates of around 6 million units by early 2025, based on some estimates out there from some sites. And the Switch 2 sold like 6 million units in the first month. And it sold 3.5 million units in the first 3 or 4 days or something. And it completely destroyed most handheld PCs, and the most popular one with the Steam Deck, in 3 days. And then by the month, it was done. By the first 3 months or 4 months, it was a wrap, over, completely done. And now at this point, it's buried, and it's embarrassing that we even have to bring this up at this point. But what I would like to see from IGN is a follow-up to this. I need the writers, I need the higher-ups to do a follow-up to this one. And I'm going to keep asking. Every time that I see a weird article where they're just doing weird stuff, like has Nintendo lost its soul, with terrible arguments, with people just saying, what are you talking about? Or making headlines like they did on Twitter, talk about the Switch 2 sales are down, and don't want to discuss or have the headline of 23 million units. That is an all-time record. I'm going to bring up all this stuff here. They are salty. I cannot 100% prove it, but they are taking those PC handheld deals when it comes to sponsorships. They are taking those. They are salty, and they do not want to say things too much when it comes to the Switch 2. Because once again, even in some of the articles like the Nintendo lost its soul and stuff, like it contradicts some of the own things written even on IGN. They're like, Metroid Prime 4, that was a misfire. For every good game, there's a misfire like Metroid Prime 4. And it's like, IGN gave Metroid Prime 4 an 8 out of 10. Like, they said it was great. What are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? And if you look at the critic ratings like you used for the Mario Bros. Movie, the critic ratings say it's a 78, which would be considered good when it comes to that. Even if it was critic ratings with the movie, that would be considered a good movie, not a misfire. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, they're pressing and they're reaching and they're being, I think, forced or coerced into doing things like this to clickbait, because once again, their PC Switch 2 imaginary war didn't happen. Handheld PCs, the prices exploded, which, by the way, they didn't talk about that. They don't have a bunch of scathing articles talking about that. And Switch 2 has become significantly more popular than any of them. So all of their stuff that they wrote just looks silly at this point. And they get teased and people bring it up all the time. So the Switch 2 has to face a problem the original didn't. Handheld gaming PCs. I'm going to need a follow-up on that saying that you guys were wrong. I'm going to need a follow-up on that saying, hey, you know what? Switch 2 has dominated all handheld gaming PCs. And honestly, there was no really problem at all. It was foolish of us to say that. I'm going to need a follow-up to that. I'm going to need a follow-up to all this next-gen PC watch or next-gen handheld PC watch. And will it even be the best handheld of 2025 and all these other things? We're going to need follow-ups to all that, because I find it funny that there's not. So once again, I'm going to keep talking about this. I know some people might be tired of it, or they'll call me names for it, or whatever the case is. But at the end of the day, you know, you got to make sure that you keep some of these people, I would say, honest when it comes to what's happening. And some of these websites just aren't doing that. I'll do it professionally. Since they don't want to do it, I'll do it. But what do you think about what I had to say here? Is IGN salty, jealous? Am I just not thinking straight here? You guys can let me know in the comment section below. All right, peeps, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.